Disclaimer: this content is for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought I'd be in this situation. If you had told me a year ago that my own husband, the man I trusted, the man I built my life with, would push me to do something like this, I would have laughed in your face. But here I am, standing at the edge of a choice I never imagined making. My heart pounding, my hands trembling. And the worst part? I don't even know if I regret it. It all started out so normal, the way most relationships do. We were happy, or at least, I thought we were. He was the kind of man who knew how to say the right things, how to make me feel special. Our love story wasn't perfect, but whose is? Over time, though, something changed. Maybe it was subtle at first, little things I brushed off. The way he started making decisions for me instead of with me. The way he turned every disagreement into my fault, no matter what. I should have seen the signs. I should have trusted my gut when something felt off. But love has a way of blinding you, doesn't it? You tell yourself it's just a rough patch, that things will get better, that maybe you're the one who needs to change. Then, one night, everything shifted. He came home with an idea, one that made my stomach twist into knots. At first, I laughed, thinking he was joking. But the way he looked at me, the intensity in his eyes, I knew he was serious. And the worst part, he made it sound reasonable, like it was the only way, like I owed it to him. I wish I could say I stood my ground, that I walked away right then and there. But the truth? I hesitated. I considered it. And in that moment of doubt, everything changed. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? If someone you loved and trusted pushed you towards something you weren't sure you wanted? Would you have walked away, or would you have convinced yourself it was okay? Tell me in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in this. And before I tell you exactly what happened next, take a deep breath, because this story is far from over. I sat there in silence, staring at him, trying to process what he had just said. His voice still echoed in my ears, smooth and persuasive, as if he truly believed this was the right thing to do. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. My mind kept racing, trying to figure out how we even got here. Maybe if I go back, if I piece it all together, I'll understand. Maybe you'll understand. Our relationship had always looked perfect from the outside. People would tell me how lucky I was to have a husband like him, charming, responsible, the kind of man who knew how to take control of a situation. And for the longest time, I believed it too. I ignored the little things, the way he always had to have the final say, the way my opinion slowly started to feel less important. It wasn't like he was cruel. No, he was too smart for that. Instead, he made me doubt myself. He made me question whether I was overreacting, whether I was the problem. I remember the first time I truly felt something was off. It was a small moment, barely noticeable at the time. We were out with friends, and I made a harmless joke about something silly he had done. Everyone laughed, including me. But when we got home, his face changed. His smile disappeared, and he just stared at me for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, in the calmest voice, he said, "You really shouldn't embarrass me like that." It wasn't a demand. It wasn't a threat. But it sent a shiver down my spine. Over time, there were more moments like that. Small, quiet warnings disguised as concern. Choices I used to make on my own became discussions. Then those discussions became decisions he made for me. And every time I pushed back, he had a way of twisting things, making me feel like I was being difficult, ungrateful. So when he sat across from me that night, telling me what he wanted me to do, I felt that same chill run through me, that same feeling of being trapped, like the walls were slowly closing in. I should have said no. I wanted to say no. But instead, I just sat there, heart pounding, wondering how things had gotten this far. And then, before I could even process what was happening, I heard myself say, "Okay." I still don't know why I said it. Maybe because it was easier than arguing. Maybe because, after all this time, I had forgotten how to fight back. Or maybe, just maybe, some part of me was afraid of what would happen if I didn't agree. But what I didn't know in that moment was that saying yes would change everything. The moment that word left my lips, okay, I felt something shift between us. It was subtle, almost invisible, but it was there. A flicker of satisfaction in his eyes, the smallest curl of a smile at the corner of his lips. He didn't look surprised, as if he had known all along that I would agree, that I wouldn't fight back. And maybe that was the part that scared me the most. Not just that he had expected it, but that he had been right. I sat there, my fingers gripping the edge of my chair, my mind screaming at me to take it back, to tell him I'd made a mistake. But instead, I just swallowed hard and nodded, as if agreeing had been my choice all along. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine, his touch warm and firm. "I knew you'd understand," he murmured, his voice smooth, reassuring. But it wasn't comfort I felt. It was something else, something heavier. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, my thoughts tangled in a mess of doubt and confusion. Had I done the right thing? Did I even have a choice? I could feel him breathing beside me, steady and calm, as if this was just another normal night, as if nothing had changed, but everything had changed. The next day, I tried to pretend things were normal. I went through my routine, made coffee, answered emails, smiled when I was supposed to. But underneath it all, I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, one wrong step away from falling into something I couldn't escape. Every time he looked at me, I felt like he was waiting, watching. And then the messages started. At first, they seemed harmless, a simple just checking in. Then another, "Hope you're still good with everything." And another, "Remember, we're in this together." I tried to ignore them, but they were constant, slipping into my day like whispers I couldn't shut out. He never asked if I had changed my mind. Maybe he already knew the answer. Maybe he knew that deep down, I was afraid to say no. I kept telling myself that I was overthinking it, that I had agreed, and that meant I was fine with it, right? But then I saw the way my hands shook when I reached for my phone, the way my stomach twisted every time his name popped up on my screen. This wasn't just a decision I had made, it was something else. Something I wasn't ready to admit. And then, something happened that changed everything. A conversation I wasn't meant to hear. Words spoken in hushed voices when he thought I wasn't paying attention. A name I didn't recognize. A plan I hadn't agreed to. My heart pounded as I stood frozen in the hallway, his voice drifting from the other room. I had agreed to one thing, but whatever this was, it was something else entirely. What would you have done in my place? Would you have confronted him right then and there? Or would you have waited, tried to find out more? Let me know in the comments. I need to hear what you would have done, because in that moment, I wasn't sure if I had the strength to face him, or if it was already too late. I stood there, barely breathing, my back pressed against the cold wall. His voice carried from the other room, calm, controlled, too controlled. I knew that tone. It was the same one he used on me when he wanted me to believe everything was fine, that nothing was wrong. But this time, I wasn't the one he was talking to. I strained to make out the words, my pulse racing as I caught bits and pieces. "She agreed. I told you she would." "No, she doesn't suspect anything." A chill ran down my spine. "She doesn't suspect anything? Who was he talking about? Was it me?" My mind scrambled for answers, trying to put the pieces together. I had already agreed to what he wanted, So why did it feel like there was more, something I wasn't supposed to know? I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay still, to listen. Another voice spoke, lower, harder to hear. Then his response, quick and certain. Tomorrow. It has to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow. My body tensed, my breath caught in my throat. Whatever this was, whatever I had unknowingly walked into, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. I stepped back carefully, my heart pounding in my ears, trying to stay quiet as I made my way to the bedroom. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. I thought about texting someone, anyone, but what would I even say? Something's wrong. I don't know what, but I'm scared. Would they believe me? Would they think I was just being paranoid? I glanced toward the doorway, half expecting him to walk in, to find me standing there, caught in my own panic, but he didn't. He was still in the other room, still talking in that smooth, steady voice that once made me feel safe. Not anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind spinning. I had two choices. I could pretend I hadn't heard anything, go along with whatever was happening, hope it wasn't as bad as my gut was telling me. Or I could do something. But what? Every option felt dangerous. Asking him outright would let him know I was on to him. Running would be useless. I didn't even know what I was running from yet. But doing nothing? That terrified me even more. So tell me, if you were in my place, what would you do? Stay quiet and wait? Or risk everything to find out the truth before it was too late? I sat there, frozen, my mind racing through every possibility. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it, feel it in my fingertips. Tomorrow. It has to happen tomorrow. The words echoed in my head, over and over, twisting into something darker each time I replayed them. Whatever he was planning, whatever I had unknowingly become a part of, it was bigger than I realized. I reached for my phone again, my hands shaking as I scrolled through my contacts. I thought about calling my best friend, but what would I even say? I could already hear her voice, half concerned, half skeptical. Are you sure you're not overthinking this? You said yes, maybe he's just making arrangements. But this wasn't normal. I felt it, and I had ignored my instincts for too long already. A sudden noise made me jump, a door closing. I quickly locked my phone and shoved it under the pillow just as he walked into the bedroom. He smiled, that same easy, confident smile, like nothing had changed. But I knew better now. Hey, he said, kicking off his shoes and sitting beside me. His hand brushed against mine, but this time it didn't feel warm. It felt like a test. You okay? You seem a little off. I forced a smile, hoping he couldn't hear how unsteady my voice was. Just tired. His eyes lingered on me for a moment too long, like he was trying to read something in my expression. My stomach twisted. Could he tell? Did he know I had been listening? Tomorrow's a big day, he said casually, stretching his arms as if this was just any other night. Everything's finally coming together. I swallowed hard. Yeah, right. Tomorrow. He leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead, but this time, instead of comfort, all I felt was dread. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw pieces of the puzzle coming together. His words, his secrecy, my own blind trust in him. I kept telling myself that maybe I was wrong, that maybe I was letting my paranoia take over. But then, at 3:27 a.m., my phone buzzed. I grabbed it instantly, my breath catching in my throat when I saw the message. Unknown number, just two words. Leave now. My blood ran cold. I sat up straight, my pulse hammering. Was this a warning? A threat? Who sent this? And how did they know? I glanced at him, sleeping soundly beside me, his face peaceful, too peaceful. My instincts screamed at me to move, to get up, to run. But where would I go? And more importantly, what would happen if he woke up and caught me? Tell me, what would you do? Would you trust the message and leave, even without knowing where it came from? Or would you stay and find out the truth, no matter the risk? Because in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. Tomorrow might be too late. I stared at the message, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might wake him. Leave now. 2 words, simple, direct, terrifying. I glanced at him, still fast asleep, his breathing slow and steady. If I moved too quickly, if I made even the slightest sound, would he wake up? And if he did, what then? My mind screamed at me to run, but a part of me hesitated. What if this message was a trap? What if leaving was exactly what he wanted me to do? Or worse, what if I walked away without knowing the truth? I slid out of bed as carefully as I could, my pulse racing as my feet touched the cold floor. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I typed back. Who are you? No response. I tiptoed toward the door, my breath shallow. But just as I reached for the handle, I heard it, a shift in the bed, a slow inhale. Where are you going? His voice was calm, too calm. My body stiffened, my fingers freezing on the doorknob. I turned slowly to face him, forcing a shaky smile. I I couldn't sleep. Thought I'd get some water. His eyes flickered to my phone. I saw it, the slightest twitch in his jaw. He knew. Come here, he said softly, patting the space beside him. A request, a command. Every instinct in my body screamed no. But I moved anyway, forcing myself to sit on the edge of the bed, my back straight, ready to run if I had to. He sat up watching me, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. He wasn't the man I thought he was. I know you saw something, he said, his voice steady. I know you heard me. My mouth went dry. Then tell me the truth. A slow smile. You're not ready for the truth. I swallowed hard. Try me. And then, before I could react, he reached over and snatched my phone from my hands. His grip tightened, his knuckles turning white as he stared at the screen. Then, just as quickly, he laughed. Low, amused. They got to you first. My stomach dropped. They? I shot up from the bed. Who are you talking about? His eyes darkened. Does it matter? He stood, moving toward me, but this time I didn't back away. Something inside me had snapped. I had spent too long doubting myself, questioning my instincts. No more. I'm leaving, I said, my voice steady. And you're not stopping me. For the first time, he looked surprised. And then, before I could even process what was happening, he smiled. You already made your choice, he said. You just don't realize it yet. And at that moment, my phone buzzed again. I didn't look at the screen. I didn't need to, because deep down, I already knew this wasn't over, not even close. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you run, or would you stay and finally uncover the truth? Because one thing was certain, I wasn't the only one being watched. I didn't look at my phone. I couldn't. My pulse thundered in my ears as I stared at him, his words echoing in my head. You already made your choice. You just don't realize it yet. What did he mean? Was I walking straight into something I couldn't escape? Or had I been trapped from the very beginning? His expression was unreadable, but his confidence, it was chilling. Like he knew exactly what was about to happen, and I was the only one left in the dark. I had a choice to make, stay and demand answers, or leave and never look back. I took a step back, then another. His smile didn't falter, but something in his eyes shifted. A flicker of disappointment, amusement, I couldn't tell. The moment I turned toward the door, my phone buzzed again. 3 messages. Same unknown number. Don't trust him. You were never supposed to know. Run! My blood turned to ice. Before I could react, he sighed, a slow, deliberate sound that sent chills down my spine. Too late, he murmured. The house went dark. Panic surged through me, but my instincts took over. I lunged for the door, my fingers fumbling with the lock. Behind me, I heard movement. A slow, deliberate step. Then another. I yanked the door open and ran. I don't remember how I made it outside. My feet hit the pavement, my breath ragged, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. The cold air burned my lungs as I sprinted down the street, away from the house, away from him. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. Somewhere in the distance, my phone buzzed again. I forced myself to glance at the screen. Keep running. You're almost safe. Almost. I don't know who sent the messages. I don't know how deep this goes. But one thing is clear. This wasn't just about me. This was bigger. And if I stop running, I may never find out the truth. So tell me, do you think I should keep searching for answers? Or is some truth better left unknown? Let me know in the comments, because something tells me this story isn't over yet.